Hello, and thank you so much for dropping by this video. Kind of be talking about two things. We're going to be talking about some life wisdom, some ideas that can help us navigate this thing called life. And one of the main pieces of this life wisdom is how to take in, how to absorb healing life energy. This is all based on the teachings of a very interesting man named Bruno Groening. That's him in the black um, right there. And for more information about him or about these teachings, please drop by my website, www.thehealingstream.org. So, first and foremost, how to take in healing life energy. For some people, that idea makes sense, and for some people, it sounds very strange. And well, if it sounds strange, I ask you to just please have an open mind. So, to do so, please sit with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, hands on your legs, palms facing upwards, back in an upright position, not stiff, but not slouched over either. And then please close your eyes. And hand over all burdens, all life situations, illnesses, things that just don't feel good, resentments, fears. Hand them over to life. If you have a conception of God or a higher power, hand them over to that your idea of a higher power. If you have a particular spiritual helper you trust, you can hand these burdens over to them. If you don't have such a helper, Bruno Groening said that he was one such person who could take on people's burdens and help them overcome them. So just handing over everything that doesn't feel good. And then think of something that makes you smile. And then begin to observe your body, having the will, the intention to absorb healing life energy. Noticing what you're feeling, having the intention to receive good energy. Noticing what you're feeling, taking in the good, absorbing healing life energy, tuning in, attuning to a healing frequency. Asking for what's good for our bodies, our minds, our lives. So, a warm welcome to everyone. Hello, divine creations, divine marvels. Children of God, thank you so much for joining in. I'm so delighted and honored to be doing this and to have so many souls joining in live, and many people are coming by this channel and watching it after the live broadcast. I'm so grateful and so touched and just hopeful. Bruno Groening said the good will prevail. And he also said that paradise will be restored on this earth. And I personally believe that Bruno Groening's work is a key part of this. So, and of course, there's many other types of good works and good deeds that are, I assume, a part of that. What Bruno Groening called the great turnaround back to God, back to living in harmony with nature. And this particular part of that is near and dear to my heart, as is Bruno Groening in his teachings. So it's like I want to thank each person, not just for coming by and watching these videos, but taking the time to tune in, taking the time to reflect on Bruno's teachings and practice them and live them, for taking time to be part of the solution. So one of the most interesting and sometimes frustrating parts of this path for me, and I think for many people, um, is the timing of a healing. I've experienced it. I've met people who've experienced. Some people have an instantaneous healing. They go to one meeting. They see a picture of Bruno Groening. Someone tunes in for them once, and something just heals. Now, I wish that's how it was always, and that's not um, been my experience. My experience is those kind of events happen sometimes. Sometimes things take time. Sometimes things take a couple weeks, a couple months. Some healings take years. And the question is why? Well, one thing that Bruno Groening said is that once we hand over the evil, we have to put the good in its place. Here's what he said. This is from Powers of the Spirit, page 95. Where evil has been removed, there is at first a hollow space, which only gets filled with the divine power a little later. So if we just hand over the evil, but then we do more evil, then nothing's really happened. It's kind of like, um, going to church and praying like, please, God, help me and forgive me, and then going out and doing the same bad things again, and then going back to church, please, God, help me, please forgive me, and so forth and so on. So on an energetic level, Bruno points out that evil is actually literally takes up space. I don't know if it's physical space or energetic space. I assume it's some combination of the both. But when we hand over the evil, we have to take in something good to fill its place. And that's why personally now I'm getting in the habit whenever I hand over, and Bruno said this, if we have a negative thought, to hand over that thought and ask for a good thought. It's not just giving the evil away. We have to give the evil away and then receive the good. Bruno also emphasized this. He once said, I could heal every person in this town with one word, but wouldn't that be it? I forget his exact, I'm paraphrasing here. He said, in essence, wouldn't that be a tragedy? And I was like, what do you mean a tragedy? That sounds amazing. Like to heal everyone in the town? And then he said, but then many people would go on and just do more evil. And so, what I take from that is that Well, before I add something to that, let me add one more piece that Bruno said. God alone has the necessary overview and power to ordain a healing at the time when it is most beneficial for the spiritual maturity of the individual concerned. So, if a healing doesn't happen, there's a very good reason. And just very simply, um, Bruno would give examples sometimes that some things aren't meant to be healed in this life. He said this about Freddie Hosp. There was another example that I can remember that actually a particular burden is for someone's spiritual growth, and they're actually not meant to heal a particular thing in this lifetime. Now we need to be careful. That was Bruno Groening declaring that. It's not like I want to go around, and I see someone in a wheelchair and I say, well, they're not supposed to heal. That's not my business at all. And it's also not my business to say, let's say I have bad hearing. I don't. The opposite. I have almost too sensitive hearing. Let's just say I had bad hearing. It's not my place to say, okay, well, I'm supposed to have this. This is where it comes down to faith and trust. We hand the burden over, and then we just keep doing the next right thing, tuning in, having faith. Any negative thoughts about the burden, continuously handing them over and receiving something good, and then ultimately surrendering. We can't, my understanding is that I can't make a healing happen for myself or someone else. That's God's job. All I can do is do the things that set the stage for a healing. But ultimately, I need to surrender and trust in God. So let's reflect on all this and continue to take in some good energy. I'm serving the body, handing over any burdens, any worries, and then receiving something back. Taking in the good. Of course, there's hints of this in the Bible. It's written that Christ healed someone and then said, something, I forget the exact passage, rise and sin no more. So it's very important for us to remember that illness doesn't happen for no reason. That's a very clear path to suffering, believing that bad things happen for no reason or that God is punishing us for some reason. According to Bruno Groening, that's not how this works at all. So for example, I'm just making this up. Let's say I'm a very angry person. I wouldn't describe myself that way, though. Like everyone else, I sometimes have anger, and let's say I go around saying mean things. That's something I definitely don't do. Um, have mean thoughts every now and then, which I give away. But I go around saying mean things, and the energetic repercussions of that are, let's say I start to have heart trouble. Well, and then let's say I go to a Bruno Groening meeting or I go to church and I'm like, God, please heal my heart. And the healing doesn't happen. And the person's like, God, it's not fair. I prayed. And the person continues being mean. And it's like, God, it's not fair. I prayed. Um, well, as you can see in this example, if God just granted the prayer and that person's heart was healed, they would just go out and do more mean things. And they wouldn't have learned anything from it. And so that's why I feel so comforted to have a teacher such as Bruno Groening to help me learn my lessons. But also, one of the things that Bruno calls us to is to reflect on our actions. He says, reflect on every thought, every word, every deed, and see if you've acted wrongly. He said, you reap what you sow, just as it's written, Christ said. And he said, I'll have to paraphrase, but in essence, human beings bring all their misfortunes on themselves. Now, I'm not saying this I'm not saying human beings bring all their misfortunes onto themselves, so you're a bad, evil person. That's not what I'm doing at all. It's so that we can take responsibility and not feel like victims. And so that we can understand what I consider one of the most important things about the spiritual path, that we live in a fair, just universe. For me, the spiritual view is that God is in control and everything happens for a good reason, a fair reason. Doesn't mean I like everything, um, but to look at the world from my point of view, there's kind of two main ways to look at the world. We can look at the world through spiritual eyes and say, all of this is God's creation and God's in charge. And although I may not like things, maybe things are challenging, as Bruno Groening said, this is a school for our spiritual learning and evolution. Or I can look at it through sort of what you could call atheistic eyes, or just the meaningless, that life itself fundamentally has no meaning and is not fair and is not just and is not good. And that's not a fun way to look at the world. And it doesn't really make sense to me anymore. And I'm very grateful. um, I've had many healings on this path. And I think one of the greatest healings is this new world view I don't have it down perfect, but that's deepening that this truly is a school guided by God, and that everything happens for a good and a fair and a just reason. I have to remind myself this maybe 30, 40 times a day, and it's starting to stick. And I'm starting to really see and feel and ask, please help me learn. We can say, please heal me, but I believe an equal prayer would be, please help me learn. So let's spend a little time taking in this good energy, or hopefully continuing to take it in. I try to tune in as I talk, noticing what we feel. taking in good energy, receiving, receiving and taking in the spiritual nourishment. And here's a quote from Bruno. And here's a quote from Bruno. Give me your illness. Give me your worries. You can't deal with them. I'll bear them for you. My back is broad. Oh boy. Bruno Groening pointed out that most people like to think of themselves as adults, but actually that we're all just children of God. And then when it comes to illness, which is just evil, it's just a particular flavor of evil, that we actually can't deal with it on our own. This is a hard blow to our ego. And Bruno Groening of himself said, I am stronger than evil. Now, once any one of us, it's like once I feel that I'm at that point, then I won't need to turn to Bruno Groening for help. I certainly don't feel that way yet. I personally believe we're all growing to that point where, well, where we, well, this is just my opinion. So let's, but well, Bruno Groening did say that he wants each of us to grow to the point where we can directly receive the healing stream without his help. That's a fact. He did, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. So, so part of the healing path is humility, is recognizing that we're up against something that we can't solve on our own. Now, for me personally, when I reflect on this, that's not just for me personally. I see it as for all of us, for the human family, the what people are calling the state of the world. Obviously, we as human beings can do things that are helpful and good, and if we're up against evil, and my understanding is all the problems of each of us as individuals and each of us as a race all stem from evil, we need divine help to free ourselves, to free ourselves from all evil. Now, there certainly are so many wonderful, nourishing things we can do for ourselves, like exercise and diet and um, acupuncture and yoga. And if we feel called, go to the doctor. which I recently did. I was having some symptoms and it wasn't going away, and I had some concern that maybe there was, I just wanted to know. And I went and got tested, and it ended up that there was, yeah, then there was no seriously health, there's no health indication of anything of ill health. And so that allows me to relax a little bit and we each need to follow our guidance in terms of what we do for self care and visiting doctors. And because these ideas and this practice of tuning in isn't actually about treating illness, it's about freeing ourselves from an energy called evil, which, according to this teaching, then manifests as illness. So, as I reflect on all this, what comes to me is that, on this path, um, it's we need to hand over the evil, and then receive the good back. But we also need to be willing to go on a different path, and we need to be humble enough to recognize, hey, if I've got an illness or any kind of burden, it's because of basically bad things I did or negative thoughts I took in. And then we also need humility that um, we're up against something bigger than us, that we need divine help. And there's also the humility of surrender, of being God knows the God knows the time and what's God knows what's best, even around healing. And then to take that attitude towards healing, God knows what's best, and then extend that to the world, that everything that happens in the world is actually part of this school of life. So humility, surrender, and trust, I see, and if I'm understanding Bruno's teachings correctly, they're all essential components of this path and of the path of healing. So let's continue to take in this good energy, putting our burdens and worries in God's hands. Reflecting on what surrender, trust, humility, faith in God means to us. There's also this idea of repentance, of regretting things we did that weren't good and determining to make a new path, to go a new way. So let's tune in and ask, for the highest and best for ourselves, for freedom from all evil, please, for mercy and grace, handing over all our burdens and taking in the good energy, but also being willing, finding the willingness and determination to do what's right. If we don't have that, I don't believe we can really be healed if we're not willing to do the good, to change our path. I believe that really violates the laws of healing. Not to ask, but this it's just not going to happen, according to what Bruno Groening taught. And asking for forgiveness. And again, this willingness to do what's right. Let's ask for those who are near and dear in our hearts, friends, family, those we love. Blessings for them. Our neighborhoods. That this energy be poured down upon our neighborhoods and that people can feel it and start to seek it and want it. And let's ask for the whole earth, for this beautiful divine Mother Earth, for every living thing on it. I'd like to thank everyone who joined in. Thank you to everyone who said hello, hello, forever loving everything. Hello, serene within. Hello, Gerald. Hello from California. Back to you from Cologne. To everyone else who joined in and is watching this video. Thank you so much. Take care. And I wish you a day full of seeking God and just connecting to what's good and just doing the next right thing. I ask for flow for each one of us, that we stay in connection with this divine flow. Interesting enough, flow is one of the meanings of the word strum, which Bruno Groening used to describe this energy, Heil Strum. So may we stay connected to this Heil, holy, which also means holy, Strum, flow, this holy flow. Take care. Much love.